Hello everyone and welcome to our lesson on recycling and polymers. I'm Mrs Jennison and I'm an Associate Director of Science at Outgrange Academies Trust. Before we start, it would be really useful if you could turn off your notifications. This way you won't be distracted throughout the lesson. It would also be useful if you had a pen and a piece of paper to hand so you could complete the tasks throughout the lesson. This is one of our lessons in our Saving Planet Earth topic. First of all, we looked at the structure of the Earth and the atmosphere. Then we looked at fuels and what they need to burn, how we can be safe around fire, and how burning causes pollution. Following that, we started to look at resources we obtain from our Earth and our impact of the use of these resources. So in today's lesson and our next lesson, we will be looking at how we can be more responsible with our use of resources. Our challenge for today's lesson is to be able to describe the importance of recycling of polymers. Our aspire is to be able to explain how our use of resources can become more sustainable.
I don't know about you, but I like our planet a lot. And one of the easiest ways we can help protect the Earth is by recycling. That's where instead of throwing things like plastic in the trash, you put them in a special bin so they go to a kind of factory to be reused. You've probably recycled things like plastic bottles before. There might even be a recycling bin in the room you're in right now. Recycling is important because it helps keep the Earth clean, especially from trash made of plastic. That's a good question. People are always talking about how important it is to recycle plastic, but Squeaks wants to know why plastic is such a problem in the first place. Why do we recycle things made of plastic, but it's not as important to find ways to recycle other types of materials, like wood? The main reason is that plastic is actually really new, and we use tons of it. The type of plastic we use to make stuff was invented by people only about 100 years ago. Before that, people mostly made things out of materials you can find naturally on Earth, like wood or metal. There were no plastic bottles, no plastic bags, no plastic anything. 100 years might seem like a really long time for plastic to have been around, but compared to something natural like wood that's been around for hundreds of millions of years, it's not very long at all. When plastic was first invented by scientists, people thought it was awesome because it was easy to bend into shape, didn't break easily like glass does, and could hold water without leaking. Soon, they started using it to make all kinds of things, from plastic bottles and bags to plastic chairs and pipes. But then scientists realized that there was a big problem. Plastic never really goes away, even when you throw it out. When you put something in the trash, it doesn't just disappear. It has to go somewhere. Most of the time, the garbage truck takes it to a place called a landfill, which is basically a giant hole in the ground. Once they're in a landfill, most materials that come from the earth, like wood, will soon break down into smaller and smaller pieces until they're basically gone. A wooden chair can take around 10 years to break down, and some types of clothes might only take a few months. But a plastic bottle can take almost 500 years to go away, and a plastic bag can take 1,000 years. Plastic was so useful that people were starting to make more and more things with it, especially things like plastic bottles or cups that you were only meant to use once before throwing them away. That meant there was more and more plastic trash piling up, trash that was going to stick around for hundreds of years. Even worse, plastic trash can blow away from garbage trucks or landfills and end up in the ocean. That's bad because it makes the ocean dirty and polluted when it's supposed to be nice, clean water. But it's also a problem because plastic can hurt the animals living in the ocean, like whales and fish. If they swallow too much plastic, either by accident or because they think it's food, it can kill them. They can also get trapped in things like the plastic rings that hold cans together. It is really sad, Squeaks. But now that we know plastic is such a big problem, there are things that we can do to help protect the animals and the earth. One thing people can do is try to use less plastic. For example, instead of getting a bunch of new plastic bags to carry their groceries every time they go food shopping, a lot of people decide to use paper bags or fabric bags that they can reuse. And you know what else we can do? That's right, we can recycle. When we recycle things like plastic cups and bottles, companies take the old plastic and reshape it into something new, like another bottle. That way, instead of making more and more plastic that ends up in landfills or the ocean, we can just keep using the plastic we already have. Overall, people still have a lot of work to do to make sure we aren't wasting plastic and to clean up what's already in the oceans. But by using as little plastic as we can and putting what we do use in the recycling bin, we can each do our part to help our planet. Thanks for joining us. If you want to keep learning and having fun with Squeaks and me, hit the subscribe button and we'll see you next time here at the Fort.
So following the video, I would like you to answer the following questions. Why is recycling important? Explain why it is important to recycle plastics. Explain why plastic is useful, and how can we reduce our use of plastics? Recycling is important because it reduces the harm to our planet from waste such as plastic, but also from other materials. It's important to recycle plastics because plastic is a new resource and we've produced a lot of plastic in a short time. A lot of our plastic is placed into landfill and it takes a long time to break down, and plastic can get into the ocean and harm wildlife. Plastic is useful because it's flexible, it can be bent and shaped and can hold liquid without leaking. We can reduce our use of plastic by reducing the amount we are using, reusing our items that are plastic, and recycling instead of placing plastics into general waste. Once plastic gets into ecosystems, its impact on the animals living in those ecosystems is devastating. It can collect in areas like beaches and make those areas inhospitable. It can tangle around our sea creatures. It can be mistaken for food and be ingested by creatures. And that can collect inside their stomachs and make it difficult for them to absorb nutrients from their natural food afterwards. Plastic in our oceans is a huge issue, as well as plastic in our land. So it's really important that we are more responsible with our use of this resource. On the screen are some UK plastic recycling statistics. My question to you is, looking through these statistics, is it good enough? Are we doing enough in the UK to reduce the impact of plastic waste on our environment? Now, it's really difficult to provide you with a mark scheme for this question because I'm asking you for your opinion. And whilst we can all agree that the amount of recycling in the United Kingdom has increased over the last few years, there are some pieces of data in this that are worth discussing. 78% of plastic packaging is recovered, which is a fantastic statistic. 78% of plastic drink bottles are recycled. However, of that 78% of packaging that's being recovered, only 50% of it is being recycled, which is half. So that means half of that plastic is still going into landfill. Also, overall, from the use of all of our plastic, 32% of plastic is recycled. Now that's less than a third, so that means 2/3 of plastic is still going into landfill. Now, I will say that from the data I've looked at, these statistics have improved and continue to improve, but I think we all need to do our part to ensure that they keep improving so that we are reducing our impact on this planet. So once the plastic has gone through the process of recycling, it's then ready to be utilised by different companies to subsidise their use of plastic and reduce how much plastic they are making from crude oil. Now, a lot of companies have really started to increase their amount of recycled plastic use. For example, Coca-Cola Great Britain has launched its first 100% recycled plastic bottles, as have Fairy Liquid, and this is just a sample. There's lots of different companies that are using recycled plastic, and that's including our uniforms. So students in our trust who are in secondary schools, some of your uniforms are made from material that has come from recycled plastic bottles, and as a trust, to date, in February 2020, we have saved over 500,000 plastic bottles from going into landfill, thanks to our uniform supplier who has started to ensure that they are utilising. So now it's time for us to just check your understanding. We're going to have a short true or false quiz. So just be ready, the answers are true or false. True or false, plastic breaks down quickly in landfill. And the answer is false. It takes a very long time for plastic to break down. True or false, plastic can cause devastating effects when it builds up in our ecosystems. And the answer is true. Definitely, it can have really damaging effects. Plastic is a modern man-made material. True or false? And the answer is true. Plastic bottles were first used commercially in 1947, but they were very expensive. The first PET bottle was patented in 1973. True or false? The UK recycles around 50% of plastics. And the answer is false. Although that number is higher when it comes to recycling plastic bottles, overall the UK recycles around 32% of all plastic. True or false? The use of disposable face coverings has contributed to the amount of plastic pollution across the world. And the answer is, unfortunately, this one's true. Whilst fabric face coverings aren't as good at preventing the spread of viruses, disposable masks are causing a huge amount of plastic waste. So it is worth us being slightly more careful with our use of disposable. So now I'm going to ask you to have a go at a question, and I'd like you to explain why it's important to recycle plastics. Now remember, when you're asked to explain why, you need to provide the reason for something happening. So you need to be using the word because in your answer. You need to say why it's happening, not just what is happening. And you are explaining the importance of recycling plastics. So I'm just going to share some success criteria. It might be worth checking your answer for these and then pausing the video and then resuming it for a model answer to compare against. So when we're looking at the importance of recycling plastics, we're supposed to be looking for the issues with plastic going into landfill, the impact of plastic on the environment, how to reduce the use of plastic, and how plastic is recycled. So if you need a little bit more time, pause the video, check you've covered all of those aspects of the answer, and then I'm going to give you a model answer in which to compare yours against. So I've placed a model answer on the screen that covers each of those success criteria points. So it's important to recycle plastic, as if it goes into landfill, it will take a long time to break down and can end up damaging ecosystems. Plastic can get into rivers and oceans and harm animals in the oceans. We should reduce our use of plastic by choosing suitable alternative materials and by recycling plastics after use. And plastic is recycled by sorting the plastic, melting and selling pellets of recycled plastic to be melted and reshaped. That's everything from me in this lesson, and I will see you all soon.